When I have gotten in a situation where I wasn't having any fun anymore, I changed it. Now, I'm an entrepreneur, and people can look at me and say, hey, well, yeah, it's easy for you to change because, you're self-employed. So you know what? Everybody's self-employed. That somebody else may sign your paycheck, but you're ultimately responsible for the amount of money that goes on that paycheck. And if your life is not organized, and by life, I'm talking about not just in the job, but the whole life is not integrated well enough that you're getting what you want, you need to change something. And what you need to change is you. Perhaps one of the things that would be beneficial for people is for them to get a coach. If you look at college football, there's these college, like Indiana this year won the national title, and 2 years ago they were the doorstep. And what happened? They got a coach. Yeah, but you as a businessman don't need a coach. And you're wondering why you're not growing? Why is your competitor growing and I'm not? Well, the reason is he probably has a coach. The difference between a guy that does $2 million a year and a guy that does 20 and one that does 200 is the size is their capacity to deal with things. And again, the best way I know to grow that capacity is by that's proactive, because you'll grow, but a lot of it's reactive and it's painful. But you can do it proactively too.
Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Greg Hayne, welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Inviting me. I'm glad that I brought some value the last time.
Yeah, that's awesome. For people who might not have listened to the earlier episode with you, it's been a lot of years now. We've been doing this for a few years, Greg. It's
we met at the IRE. Your booth and my booth were right side by side. I remember that.
Yeah. And that was that might have been IRE. Maybe in New Orleans or something, like
probably.
The 2020, 2021.
It's been a while ago. It has.
Yeah. And so for our listeners who aren't familiar with you, what's your background? What do you do in roofing? How'd you get into roofing?
So I grew up in the household of a commercial general contractor, and I eventually started a branch office to do commercial roofing work. And I was successful at that for, 15 years. Let's say 15 years. And then I got tired of being responsible for irresponsible people. And I got tired of having to decide at 4:00 in the morning if it was going to rain that afternoon at 2:00, because I wanted to tear the roof off the building that day. And I also believe that work should be fun. And I got to the point where work was not fun for me. And so from there, I morphed into becoming a roofing consultant, which I loved. I did that for about 15 years. And then I started training roofing contractor service departments. That's probably when we met, okay?
Yep.
And then I got this idea a few years ago, 8 years ago, to start peer groups for commercial contractors. We bring non-competing contractors together of similar size and so forth. And that's been a massive home run for the contractors that have been in these groups. And it's been fun for me because it needs to be fun.
It does. It needs to be fun. One of the things that you talk about is proactive growth.
Yeah.
And I know you have a newsletter about it that people can sign up for and get a bi-weekly newsletter. I think this is a great topic for right now. And what we've talked about and what I know others that I hear when I'm coaching in the RSRA and like different things is like, and all the clients that we had at Roofer Marketers and Job Nimbus Marketing, it's like people, not just in business, but people allow life to kind of impact them instead of them impacting their life.
They're
if
reactive.
That's a good way to put it, right? They're reactive.
Yes,
they're reactive to their environment. It's in business. It's, you get to the office in the morning or even before that now, you roll out of bed and you open up your phone and there's all those emails that are just sitting there waiting to take over your day.
Yeah.
And so I thought we would start with that, like how to how does one move from being reactive in their business to proactive in their business?
So let's not talk about it purely in the context of business, because
Perfect.
it we spend most of our day in the
It's
business,
life. That's right.
but this is a mindset that has nothing to do with whether you are in business or not or if you're at home. This is a mindset. And um, I think that the first thing people need to understand is that, well, like I said, in my work, when I have gotten in a situation where I wasn't having any fun anymore, I changed it. You know, now I'm an entrepreneur, and people could look at me and say, "Hey, well, yeah, it's easy for you to change because you're self-employed." And so, you know what? No, everybody everybody's self-employed. It's true that somebody else may sign your paycheck, but you're ultimately responsible for the amount of money that goes on that paycheck. And if your life is not organized, and by life I'm talking about not just in the job, but the whole life is not integrated well enough that you're getting what you want, you need to change something. And what you need to change is you. And sometimes that may mean changing the job, but generally it means changing you. It's interesting. We mentioned the peer groups, but one of the things I've learned is that the number one obstacle to the growth of an organization is always the boss. Now, he may not be that today, just wait. He will become the number one obstacle to growth. And for them to continue to grow, he's got to grow. And it won't be his knowledge of roofing. It won't be his knowledge of business administration. It won't be insurance. It won't be HR. It will be how he needs to expand himself. And what I've discovered with my peer group members is most of them don't know how to do that.
It's very true.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us don't know how to do that, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle in life, right? And for in life or business, you can be the impediment for anything, right? You
Right.
can be the impediment to your health. You can be the impediment to your business. You can be the impediment to your relationships. It doesn't matter if you are not proactively engaging and moving in the right direction. Um, what are some things people can do to start to move? Like, hey, how do I move towards a proactive life?
Um, First of all, you have to want to. Because if you don't want to, it's okay if you don't want to, but I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to take charge of your life and than to let external circumstances dictate it. Um, so I think the first thing they need to do is make a decision that they want to do that. And then the next thing is like, how do I go about doing that? And um, it's a little bit like weightlifting. If you want to get stronger and you lift weights, what you actually do is you go in there and you rip up the muscles. And when they heal, they get stronger. Well, so you've got to do some things for yourself that on a psychological level and on an emotional level are the same kind of thing. You need to start doing some things that make you uncomfortable. And maybe that is like in the peer groups, the one repeating problem is somebody walks in and says, I got this one person that works for me. And man, he is the best at X. And he's wonderful. And we make a lot of money on his job, but nobody can stand to be around him.
Mm.
And generally it takes, and so and now let's be clear, these are all really good people. They are
Yeah,
really good people, but they come and they whine. Okay. And eventually they come to the conclusion they got to go. And then they make that decision. Okay. And then everything gets better. Inevitably, everything gets better. So growth is don't take 2 years to do that. Take 10 days. Go,
definitely.
go through that
That's
process
a
fast.
big problem.
Go
Yeah.
through that process faster. Okay.
It's the old higher slow fire or higher slow fire fast kind of analogy, right? You have to identify what I'm hearing is
Yes.
identify the problem and move quickly and execute quickly on a solution to that problem.
It's like I say to the people, I say, how long have you known about this? And the answer is always a long time. It's just that it's getting worse. All right. And as in fairness, in some cases, what's happening is that the typical business owner has not one or two, but he may have 19 irons in the fire. And there may be other irons that legitimately have a higher priority than this one jerk. Okay. And so they work through some of this other stuff. And then all of a sudden, this individual boils to the top of the pot. And now we have to do something about it. So that's an example of, of, of making those difficult decisions, doing it intelligently, and then watching what happens. And you go, oh, that wasn't so bad. Things got better. Remember that for the next time. But there, one of the things that I always say is you need to develop the right side of your brain. So the left side of our brain is the analytical part. It's the logical part. It's the analytical thinking part. And we use it in business all day long, every day. And it needs to be good. And most of us are good at that. But, if you really want to grow, you also need to engage and expand the right side. The right side is the emotional side, the feeling side. It's where your gut is. It's where intuition comes from. It's where the art is. So if you have a business problem, maybe the best way to come up with a solution for that business problem is to get your guitar out and play the guitar for half an hour. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, where did that come from? Okay. But you've stimulated the right side of your brain. Or take a walk in the woods. And it's fascinating to me.
Before we carry on with the episode, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors. Roofers, let's get real. You're great at building roofs, but are you great at building a steady stream of leads? That's where Job Nimbus Marketing comes in. They know the roofing industry inside and out, and they'll help you dominate Google, Facebook, reputation management, and everything in between. If you want more quality leads, more booked jobs, and more growth, visit the link in the description or the sponsors page on the Roofing Success Podcast website.
And it's fascinating to me how resistant people are to doing this sort of thing. A great example of this, I used to be an EOS implementer. And for those who might be listening that don't know about EOS, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It is a set of business tools that you can put in any business. It doesn't have anything to do with roofing. Any business it will work in, but they have a thing called a clarity break. And in the clarity break, what you do is you take a pad of paper and a pen, and you go to your favorite Starbucks, and you leave your phone, you leave your laptop, you leave all of your technology in your truck, and you go in, you order a coffee and a roll, and you sit down for an hour, and you look at this pad of paper. Now, words will start to appear, okay? And you can work on your problems that you have at home or in the office, and you just write. And what the experience most people have when they do this is that by the time the hour's up, they have clarity. Now, they may not have the solution, but they may know what the problem really is. The problem wasn't that jerk that we were just talking about. The problem was I didn't do a good job of sitting down and explaining to him what he needed to do better. Or whoever his direct report he reports to has not done that. Maybe a training thing. So you get clarity. And it's fascinating to me how difficult it is for people to get to allow themselves to go do that. And then when they do, they inevitably walk into a peer group and they say, boy, I did that clarity break. Made it. I'm doing those every week. It makes a big difference. Like, duh. Okay. So, and that's not purely right brain stimulation, but what it is, it's getting you out of the routine. It's getting you away from routine so that the stuff that really is already in there that wants to come up to the surface has a place to do that. So that'd be a great example.
Yeah, definitely. What in those examples, like when you're looking for clarity and looking for right-brained activities, when we talked about the is this the right person, a lot of that is logical. There are metrics that tell you if this is the right person,
So yes and no.
right?
I
But we're
agree to
dealing
that.
with but to me it's the emotion that inhibits that execution of that. Where does this come together?
So what we talk about in the peer groups is that, okay, somebody has a salesman, and most commercial roofing contractors don't have real salespeople, but some of them do. And for everybody, there's a struggle managing salespeople, because this is not how salespeople don't think the way roofers think, And
Yep.
the thing that's interesting is they come in, they say we need KPIs. I say no, you don't. They say, what do you mean? And I said, the only reason you need KPIs is to prove to yourself what you already know, that he's not the right guy or he's not the right girl. Okay. You already know this. And that comes out of the right brain, by the way. That comes out of your gut.
That's what yeah.
That's where it comes from. It comes out of your gut. So one of the things you have to do is you need to learn to listen to that. And, you know, I, one of, when I would train service departments, I don't do that anymore unless you're in one of my peer groups, but they would connect me with somebody that was going to run the service department, and I could generally tell after a minute whether that person was going to be successful or not. I don't need KPIs. I don't need to think this through. It's like, no, that ain't going to work. Okay. And they can do that too. They just need to learn. That's the intuition side. They need to trust their gut. They need to trust it sooner, before they're bleeding and hemorrhaging, and they're all bandaged up metaphorically because of all the damage this situation has caused. As soon as you know you got a problem, fix it.
And that's where I think that it comes together, and where I like where you're going with this is, you're not listening to that a lot
Right.
of times, right? In making those decisions in your business or in life, you're listening, you're looking for, it's logical, it's there, but the emotion and the right brain is giving you like, we'll give you some flexibility on this. Where I like what you talked about in having those clarity breaks is maybe that's where it comes together a little bit,
Sure, it can.
right?
It can.
It can. Maybe it's where it slows down a little bit, and potentially can, that problem can surface, and you can put some thought into it, and you may be able to apply your logic while you are doing that, that right brain activity,
You've
right?
got to use there's nothing wrong with using the analytical part. I'm just saying
That's
that
right.
you also need to beef up the other side, because,
Yes.
yeah, just need to beef up the other side.
Yeah. And if you need KPIs to, I like what you said there too, because a lot of people will use them as a crutch, or say we need to create them so that we know. But you already know in a lot of cases is the other point that I know you were making there, is that, you know, now as a former EOS implementer, I'm sure you believe in the power of having those KPIs, right? Like
Right.
it's very impactful in the day to day. But there's another part of it, right? Like those KPIs, and from the frame of EOS, is if you were on a desert island, and had no contact, these would be the most important things to know. But you're not at a desert island. You're
Right.
you're having communication with this individual on an ongoing basis.
Right.
So more than
Right.
just the KPIs, or
Yeah.
around that individual.
And of
Yeah.
course, getting the KPIs right it's an ongoing process. You know, I mean, I've got there's a contractor that I have in one of my peer groups. He it's a large contractor. This particular individual is responsible for 60 production crews. The last time I talked, okay, 60. All right. He has KPIs off the yin yang. But what he does is he does reviews every quarter. Now, for people sitting there saying, well, I don't have time to review my people, he does reviews every quarter. All right. He has to do that. All right. because he has to stay on top of things. But when he does the reviews, he has KPIs that he manages to. And if this is all fixed and we've got a new problem over here, he changes the KPIs to address this new problem. And so he manages with KPIs, but there's a difference between managing with these KPIs and using KPIs as a crutch to convince yourself of what you already know. And if you really want to grow proactively, you got to learn to own it, what you already know up front. You don't need the KPIs to know.
Yeah.
That person's not going to work out. We got to get rid of them.
Yep. Other things I think about in proactive growth is not just as you as an individual, but in your company. You know, I see too many times where contractors get enough business. They attract enough business, right? And they don't choose. They may have a goal for the year, but they don't have a pathway to that goal. They set a goal for the year and then they hope for the best. How can they be proactive in the growth of their business also?
There are more books on leadership out on Amazon than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
What there are not is enough books on how for that leader to expand his capacity. So I have this metaphor. I've got a little bowl here in my hand, okay, for those that are watching this, right? And what you do all day long is you have these beans that drop in. And so some of the beans are projects, some are HR matters, some are bill paying, all this stuff that we all do every day drops in. And eventually the bowl gets full and some of the beans start spilling out. That's when we get unhappy, all right? And what everybody tries to do is they try to manage the beans. They try to get this bean taken care of and get this bean paid. Meanwhile, more beans are going in. Okay. What the best contractors, the people that are most successful do is they get a bigger pan. They make their capacity bigger. Then when all those beans, they're still the same amount of beans, but they got more room.
Yep.
Okay. And the difference between a guy that does $2 million a year and a guy that does 20 and one that does 200 is the size is their capacity to deal with things. And again, the best way I know to grow that capacity is by that's proactive, because you'll grow.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll grow, but a lot of it's reactive and it's painful. But you can do it proactively too.
That makes me think about, like, one thing that I like to say is I always try to keep my knowledge level above my income level. Like, that's my path. I try to keep my knowledge level above my income level. So I'm always on a constant journey of learning. I feel like increasing that bowl is your knowledge level in a lot of cases. What in that analogy, when you get to different places in business, you have to have different sets of knowledge, maybe more finance knowledge, maybe more HR knowledge, maybe more production knowledge, maybe more sales
Agreed.
knowledge, right?
Those are all
That
beans, by the way. Those are all beans.
okay, those are all beans. So
Yeah.
this is where I want to get clarity on
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
now what's the bowl then?
So the bowl is you. The bowl is, okay. So at some point, you have to understand that I can't do this by myself anymore.
Mm,
I've got to hire somebody else to help me with X.
got it.
Now, that's not necessarily making the bowl bigger. That is being reactive. If you're sitting there going, I need help, that's reactive. Okay. When you're taking the time to stimulate the right brain, when you're journal writing, okay, that's one of my always suggests is writing a journal. I had a contractor says, if you think I'm going to sit down and write about my feelings all day long, you're crazy. I never said anything to him about writing about his feelings. I just said, write,
Yeah.
So everybody is so afraid of making a mistake. And most of the mistakes that they make, they can recover from. There are very few things that happen in a business that are irrevocable. There's very
Yeah.
few. You fire that guy that was a jerk. It turns out it was a mistake. Well, okay, we've learned our lesson. Yeah. Um, the perhaps one of the things that would be beneficial for people is for them to get a coach.
Mm.
If you look at college football, there's these college like Indiana this year won the national title, and 2 years ago they were the doorstep. And what happened? They got a coach. Yeah, but you as a businessman don't need a coach, and you're wondering why you're not growing. Okay, why is your competitor growing and I'm not? Well, the reason is he probably has a coach. I mean, coaches ask provocative questions. Coaches ask uncomfortable questions. Coaches do things that tweak the ego.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I look at the people that are in my peer groups, and they're not smarter than the people that are not in my peer groups. But the difference is they're willing to say, I don't know. They're willing to put their ego aside and say, I don't know. It'd be great if I had some help. That's the difference. And we have 10% of my members have an EBITDA over 20%. The typical EBITDA for a commercial roofing contractor in this country is 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're producing 5 times the net profit of the typical roofing contractor because they're willing to say, I don't know. I want some help. Yeah. So
It's a big I've talked about this on the show a few times, and it's there was a study done, and one of the um, best traits of an entrepreneur, a CEO, is self-awareness.
yes.
And that self-awareness is, I don't know that,
A-
right?
And,
Like that is the one of the greatest indicators of self-awareness is that ability to say, I'm not sure.
and
Let me find a solution. But then the proactiveness to go and find the answer
and you know where
that
that
best fits your
self-awareness lives? It
company.
lives in the right side of your brain.
Mm,
Okay. Self-awareness has to deal with the emotions and the fears and all of that. Yeah,
yep.
that's all on the right side. So when you
Yeah.
stimulate the right side, those things come up and you can deal with them.
Yep.
By the way,
Uh,
I noticed so I don't know when this is gonna get published, but what just got published by you the other week was episode 293, and it was about urgency,
yeah.
and I just love that because the thing that holds back so many contractors is urgency in communication.
Hmm.
And it's like, we gotta get out there and get it done. Yeah, well, we also need to tell them what we're doing just as fast, if not faster.
If not faster.
If not
That
faster.
communication has to be communicated. Eh, if you would think about it in a life or death situation, right? If you just start running in a direction, hoping everyone's going to follow you in that direction, they're just like, why is Jim running over there? Right? But if I communicate to you, hey, this is happening, it's coming from this way, and we have to run this way really fast. Now we all know there's the urgency in that. And now we've clearly communicated why Jim started running away.
And like, as a roofing consultant, I would represent owners on projects, and it was interesting, like, roofing projects, stuff goes wrong, okay?
huh?
And
Really?
really,
Oh,
and
I
and
can't believe
and
it.
and when I as a roofing consultant, when something would go wrong, I was always interested to who I would hear it from. Because if I heard it from the owner before I heard it from the roofer, I got a bad roofer. If I hear it
That's
from the
right.
roofer before I hear it from the owner, I have a good roofer. And all that involves is knowing who you need to tell and telling them quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Why?
anyway,
How?
I
How
had a
does a?
comment on that.
No, that's great. And so in the companies that you've been around for years, and the company that you had, what did you find were some of the ways to manage the communication most effectively. How did how did you properly set expectations for your team, properly set expectations for the property owners, the property managers, all of the vested interest, all of the people with vested interest in getting the job done.
I know you're enjoying the episode, but let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors. I talk to contractors every day that feel stuck. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're missing the structure to growth without chaos. Or their culture's falling apart because their team's unclear, unaligned, or just burned out. And when change hits, they're reacting instead of leading because time and priorities aren't under their control. Day 41 Thrive helps to fix that with proven strategies for growth, culture, and leadership that actually work. Ready to thrive beyond the storm? Visit the link in the description or visit the Roofing Success Podcast website on the sponsors page to start your journey today.
All of the vested interest, all of the people with vested interest in getting the job done.
So we could do a whole podcast on that, but first of all, as a roof consultant, what I always told my owners is what you tell your tenants or what you tell the occupants is when we do this re-roof, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be dirty, and it's going to be very disruptive. You make it sound like the world's going to come to an end. And as a roof consultant, when I would tell a property manager to do that, I always could tell when he would not do that because I would get phone calls from him saying, hey, they're complaining. Okay. I said, you did not do what I told you to do. No, I didn't. It's too busy. Well, okay, now we have to deal with it. All right. So that's one thing. All right. Another thing, and I think this is very important, is do not let roofers communicate. Roofers think it's about roofing. No, communication is not about roofing. It's about communication. You need to have people that have customer service skills do the communication. So that, like as a roof consultant, I'd call some roofer on the phone and say, I have a leak. And so today we're doing this on a Wednesday, you and I, all right? So I have, I'd call him, I have a leak at such and such price. He said, well, I can't get there till next Tuesday. Well, I really like for it to be there sooner. Can't do that. Okay. You know what? He's fired. Okay. So then I call another roofer and I say, I got a leak and there's some urgency. And they say, well, the problem we have is that we can't really get there until next Tuesday. However, if you want us, we could get there tomorrow, but there'd be overtime involved. Would that be okay? All right. They give me an opportunity to make some, they don't say can't do it. Okay. They give me an opportunity. Now I'm not saying that roofers can't do that, but what I will say is they don't. They're terrible. They're terrible at it. Okay. So you need to have people that have some customer service skills doing a lot of the communicating. And if you're a $2 million a year roofing contractor, that's you. That's not an employee, that's you. If you're a $4 million a year roofing company, it's probably still you for many of those things. Is that helpful?
Definitely you when the problem comes up.
When the problem goes up. Yeah, well, no, this is like when this is the problem. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Those problem conversations scale up, right? They go right to the top. But then you have to determine how you can as you grow. Now, how do you get your team to communicate properly, right? And that would be through a lot of training. Hey, these are the common questions that we get asked, and here are the common answers for them, and here is an option for them for that. So and let's
So it's interesting because in service, which is I still have all the expertise, What I tell the people that are my owners and my peer groups or whatever, I said, look, you need to be replying to people quickly. If they send you an email, if you have time to read it, you have time to reply. Okay. And the answer I don't know what the answer is to this question, but I'll get back to you tomorrow, or I'll have the estimator call you by tomorrow, or whatever. But it's a reply. That's that's a
Mhm.
communication, right? Even if the answer is I don't know, it's still that's still good communication. But here's the thing: I also tell them, if it takes you, the owner, a day to get back to the service manager when the service manager asks you a question about something, and a lot of times it does. Okay. You just give that service manager permission to take a day to get back to all of his customers. You cannot expect your staff to have great communication if your communication is not great,
Mm. Yep.
because they're gonna do what you do. Okay. And if you're a crappy communicator, they know. They know.
And they will emulate.
And and it's not they won't, it's not like they'll sit there and go, "Well, he doesn't do this, so I'm not gonna do that." That's not what goes on in their
Yeah.
mind. It just kind of
No.
on an unconscious level in the culture, there's not the urgency that you need.
Yeah. And how and that gets, that type of communication in the office, and what is said about the customer and their questions to us sometimes affects that communication. So if the customer is asking questions and you are and your reaction is, "Oh my goodness, this stupid customer with all their dumb questions all the time," right? Like that's how your team is going to feel about a customer asking questions, and
And
they're going to treat that customer in that way.
and and if somebody has asked you a question 3 times that's gonna be asked forever, handle it up front. So if you're doing a
Yeah.
project, you know what kind of questions are gonna come in. You need to sit down with an owner before you start the job and answer those questions.
What are 3 questions that get asked in service all the time?
When are you gonna be there? How long is it gonna take? Um, did you find anything else? Um,
Yeah.
did you get it? Did you get it? Did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and so you
What
handle
about
it up
from
front.
the aspect of someone choosing a contractor to be there to manage their service, manage their building servicing, the roof service?
Ask that different. I don't understand. Ask it differently.
Um, so now I'm deciding which roofing contractor I want to do a service contract with.
Okay.
What are what are some of those things that you wanna get out of that you can communicate up front that will answer their questions before they ask you?
So first of all, ideally, you're already doing repair work for them. If you're already doing
Got it.
repair work for them, they're not gonna have any questions because you've already demonstrated what's gonna happen. When you're reporting to them, when you have the invoice in their hands within 24 hours of the time you walk off the roof of the repair, they're not calling you on the phone and say, "When am I gonna get the invoice?" If it's
Mhm.
taking you 2 weeks to get the invoice out because your office is so disorganized and so you know, that you're not gonna be selling them contracts for contract work because you can't even get the invoices out for the work that you've already got, right? Um, for people that you've never done work with before, you have to ask, "What are your expectations?" It is so easy to set yourself apart from everybody else. It's just talk.
Especially when they tell you what will separate you from everyone else. When you ask a question like, "What are your expectations from a roofing contractor?
When does this
What
need to
would
yeah,
make
yeah,
our relationship the best it could be?"
yeah.
Right? Like any of those types of questions, they're gonna give you the answer. So,
And the challenge that most contractors have is not understanding them, but fulfilling them.
yes.
And in service, since we're on the service bandwagon, the
Yeah.
thing is, most contractors don't care about service. Even those that claim they do, they really don't. The best service contractors in the country have service revenue that is at least 25% of their total corporate revenue, 25 to 40%. The typical commercial roofing contractor who doesn't care about service based upon his actions, okay, will have 10 to 15% of his total revenue in service. So if you're a $10 million a year contractor and you really don't care about service, you'll have $1 to $1.5 million a year in service without trying, just because they have leaks. Okay. But if
Yeah.
you're a $10 million a year contractor and $4 million of that service, you know service.
Yeah. Let's move on to what you're hearing, because
Sure.
you have your peer groups and what I want to know what are people dealing with
Yeah.
in today's economy, in the labor market. What's going on in commercial roofing with the companies that you are in contact with on a regular basis?
So it is somewhat dependent upon the group, because the groups are organized by revenue. So like we have one group where the biggest contractor is 10 million, and we have another group where the smallest contractor is 20, as an example. All right. And 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 then you have to also look at how they go to market. So we have some contractors that only work with consultants. We have other contractors that don't do any work with consultants. So you have to listen to all of this and put things in perspective. Having qualified that as a general rule, last year, most people were saying that their revenue was down a little bit, their profit margins on the work was down more. They had to take work there was work, but they had to take it at a significantly less margin. If they were normally bidding 40 points, they had to bid at 30 points. If they're doing new construction and they're normally 20 points, they're down to 10 points or things like that to get the work. And were there some exceptions? Yeah. But as a general rule, that was pervasive. I'm also hearing from the bigger contractors. And the thing about the bigger contractors is they tend to see things from a 30,000 foot level better than the smaller contractors do, is they see signs that the economy is going to start to turn around a little more and things are going to become a little more positive. So that most of them they're not thinking the first quarter is going to be great, but they're hoping that things are going to improve as the year goes on. That's what I'm hearing.
I know you're enjoying the episode, but let's give a shout out to another one of our sponsors. If you and your team aren't trained on AI yet, you're already falling behind. Competitors using AI are generating more leads, closing jobs faster, and running leaner. The AI roofing revolution gives your team the training to implement AI so you stay ahead, not scramble to catch up. Don't wait until you're losing. Get trained now at the link in the description or the sponsors page of the Roofing Success Podcast website.
What has been attributed to the lower margins?
Oh, well, the competition.
Got it.
So, I mean, like pick a big city like Chicago. Chicago. All right. So you've got a situation there where you've got contractors from downstate that don't have the work that they want, or you may have them in Milwaukee that don't have the work they want. So they're coming into Chicago to try to get some of the work that's there to keep their revenue dollars up. And that's because maybe in their market, maybe they do a lot of schoolwork and none of the schools are putting stuff out for bid this year. And all of a sudden they're hit. And so they got to go look for schoolwork someplace else. And so is there less work? There is less work, but there is work. And so instead of having 8 people on a bidder's list, there's 18 people on a bidder's list. Or instead of having 3, there's 8. And when that happens, somebody makes a mistake, somebody was a little greedy, or they want a little more, and all of a sudden, if you want that, you got to take it for less.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand,
It's
right? Like there's,
absolutely pure supply and demand.
yeah, it's it and the economy definitely leads to that. The amount of projects being done, it's there has to be commercial built buildings that are not getting built right now that are getting put on hold and
Oh,
not sure,
so
and
s- s-
there's so much of this that when there is uncertainty in
and
the economy,
there
a
is a
lot of
lot of
this.
uncertainty
Yeah,
in the political climate
that's right.
and that comes into the economic climate.
Yeah.
And as somebody said to me, I really don't care what the rules are going to be. Just make them clear what they are, and then I'll deal with them. And right now,
Yeah.
the rules are not clear. Are we going to have
Yeah.
tariffs or are we not going to have tariffs? Well,
Yeah.
I really don't know, but I know this. We're not going to start that construction on that new building this year until we get that straightened out, because if there's going to be tariffs, then that means blah,
That's
blah,
right.
blah, blah. Yeah, that's how the thinking goes in the C suites.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you had mentioned earlier that that you have some companies doing like towards 20% EBITDA, and the
And more.
industry
Some are
average
more.
is 4, right? Like,
Yeah.
um what are the factors that lead to
Yeah.
that type of profitability? Because to me, boy, that's a way to absorb the fluctuations in the economy, right? Like when you when you have the margins to to choose the jobs that you want. Is that a good way to put it, Greg? Maybe like,
Yeah.
if my margins are so good that I get to pick. I get to say, I'll do 40% on this one, I'll do 35 on that one. If I want that job, I'll go down to 32 and I'll still be profitable on it. Or, like if there's a lot of power in being really good with your numbers, what are some of the factors that lead to those successful companies having those types of margins,
Sure.
net profit, EBITDA margins?
So it all starts with the leader, and the leader needs to be playing to his strengths. So there is an assessment that's very inexpensive. It's less than $50. It's called Strength Finders. It's done by the Gallup organization.
Mm.
And everybody ought to go do Strength Finders. It'll give you, if you buy the right one, it'll give you 34 different categories. It gives you your top 5. And then you need to look at these. And then you need to look at your role. I'm assuming we're talking to owners, okay? And
Yep.
and 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 where are you weak? Are you weak on the execution side? Are you weak on where it's going to tell you where you're weak? It's not going to let you think that you're like this. It's going to tell you how you are. Okay. And then the like, as an example, I had a contractor that almost went out of business 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He was doing about $4.5 million a year. And I got on the phone with him one day and I said to him, I'm going to say that his name was Jim. All right. It wasn't Jim, but I said, Jim, get out of the office. Stop trying to be the president of the company and sell, because you're a brilliant salesman. So he went out, and I get a phone call from him. That's like in the first quarter of the year. I get a phone call from him in the third quarter. He says, I need to thank you. He said, our net profit has gone up $1 million this year because I got out. We're going to do about 7 million. He said, because I got out of the office. It went from a negative number to a positive number. I said, what are you going to do next year? He said, oh, about 7 million. I said, why so little? Why not more? He said, well, last year we took work because we had to have work. Now I'm going to get the work I want to have. Well, he didn't do 7 million. He did 13. Okay. And now I think he's approaching 20. Right. So here's somebody that went from $4 to $4.5 million to approaching $20 million, 5xing himself in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. What he did was he played to his strengths. And for those of you that are listening, the strengths are not your ability to put on a roof. You have people for that. Okay. It's your other strengths. Understanding how to put the process together, great. Understanding how to hire the right people, I don't know what they are, but strength finders can help with that. I don't make any money off of that. I'm just trying to help.
No, that's a good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. The Gallup Strength Finders. That's a very intuitive. It will give you a lot of great intuition around yourself and what your strengths are. A couple things I heard, like if your skill set is sales, be in sales.
Yes.
If your skill set is operations, focus on operations. Why do business owners, why do people get lost in doing the things that they're not good at?
Ego.
All the time.
We all have egos. If you're going to own a company, you're going to have an ego. You're going to think that you can be better or smarter or whatever than somebody else, and that's okay. So I'm not suggesting that we don't have egos, but we have to keep our egos in check. And of course, you know where the ego lives. It lives in the right brain, not the left brain. um, and if you're not going to look over there because it's not interesting to you, and by the way, your left brain's going to try to give you all the reasons not to do that, all right? Which is also ego, by the way. But you know, some people think that they're smart enough that they can do everything, and they're not. One of the best businessmen I know, he's running a $100 million a year company. He doesn't know how to turn a Leister gun on. Okay, he does. He could turn. But we're not going to let him weld anything. All right, but he's good at business, and he plays to his strengths, and he's willing to say, "I don't know." That's where he's willing to subvert the ego. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest part of it is the getting out of your own way, getting rid of you. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room for every single thing. Get out of your ego. I think thinking about it in another way, I think that maybe people look at others and they say, like if they're in a peer group with you, right? And they go, man, well, Bob over here, he's crushing it. He has a 20% EBITDA. I'm going to do what Bob does.
What happens is they sit there and there's 2 or 3 contractors that are all the same size. And 3 years later, 3 of them have 4x their business and he's the same size. And at that point, the mirror has to come up.
Yeah.
It's no longer what are they doing? It's what am I not doing? And one of the advantages of the group is that happens. Okay. And it's supportive. People don't poke, so I poke, but not hard.
Yeah. It's part of it, right? You want friends that'll and people around you that'll be honest with you.
Well, I had a contractor one day say, because now maybe people that are listening to this haven't figured this out, but I can be really direct and plain spoken. And I had a business owner say to me, Greg, he said, I got a whole building full of people that spend all their time trying to figure out to tell me what they think I want to hear. And he said, you tell me what you think I need to hear, whether I'm going to like it or not. And a lot of times I don't like it, but I really appreciate it.
Mm.
And I get away with that because they know I care.
Yeah.
Because I want to help them, So I just don't blow up at them and tell them they're stupid. I help them. And that's where the fun is for me.
Yeah. And that's where, especially when you're in an environment, whether it's like a peer group, a mastermind group, a group like ours with the RSRA, when you're around people who they're walking the path that you are walking or have walked it, and they're truly being honest and trying to be helpful. On the other side of that, I really believe that sometimes that, you could, the way I put it, there's a billion ways to make $1 million, right? So as you put a business together, it doesn't have to be the same. It's not going to be the exact same for me that it will be for you. So something that I did in my business, maybe it's just not the right fit. So my advice might not be the exact right advice. And so what I say to people there is, well, you have to be open to the idea, and then but then you can make it your own, or test it and see if it's a good fit for your organization. And then if it is or if it isn't, you can just make your changes and move from there.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Even more important, though, is when you walk into a meeting, one of these meetings, you instantly know they all understand.
Yeah.
And in the case of that guy that almost went out of business, he walked in and he said, "This is my problem." And everybody there told him a story about where they had their, "Hey, if I don't fix this, I'm going to be out of business" story. And that supported that company in knowing that it's not just me. It's not,
That's right.
it's not that I'm stupid. It's like
Yep.
they've all been there, and so having that support is really helpful too. It really is.
It is. There's another thing. Entrepreneurship is a lonely road. Boy, it's a lonely road.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of times we think that this is only happening to us.
No.
But it does. It happens over and over and over again. Greg, what's some final advice based on the conversations and all the stuff we talked about today? What's some final advice that you could give to the community and to help them, be proactive and
I've got a free
do
offer.
better?
I have a free offer for them. If they go to my website, haynecoachinggroup.com/email, and if they're willing to give us their email address, we will send them a link so they can subscribe to our totally free newsletter. And the newsletter is all about giving people ideas how to proactively move their life forward. It's called Waking Up.
Awesome.
And they can learn about what's next. Because your future should not be a guess. But really, but if they want to subscribe to that newsletter, they'll get all sorts of ideas of things that they can do that will equip them to start growing that right hemisphere, proactively learning, proactively growing.
Awesome, man. Appreciate your time today, Greg. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.